What is going on, guys? My name is Kenji and welcome back to my channel. Hopefully it's not the first time you're watching one of my videos, but just in case it is, I'm a doctor working in London. Actually amazing to say to you guys, for the second time on my channel, I believe. And don't worry, I'm driving safe. I've got both my hands on the wheel for most of the time. Today is actually a very exciting day because, well, I'll be honest with you guys, yesterday is my first day in the hospital. Today's actually my second day. I really wanted to vlog like my first day actually going to the hospital, but to be honest with you guys, yesterday wasn't that exciting. We literally sat in one room from the whole, like literally from 9 to 5, listening to lectures, like induction lectures. But today's actually the first day ever where I actually get to go onto the wards and see patients for the first time. So that is actually quite exciting. Recently, a lot of people have been messaging me or just asking me in general, you know, Kenji, you're finally a doctor, finally going to the hospital for the first time to actually be a doctor. And what does that actually feel like? And on the way to the hospital, I love driving because it gives me like a lot of time to reflect and to think. And I really wanted to take you guys along with me today to share my thoughts on the entire process of actually becoming a doctor. Even though I'm not on the wards the entire day, may not be as like exciting as the other videos where I'm actually on the wards seeing patients. There will be obviously that aspect of it later on in the video. I want to actually show you guys realistically what it's like to go through the entire process of starting at a new hospital. Quick break to tell you guys about Magic Mind. And if you guys have been watching my channel, then you know that for the last couple of months, I've been really using it to increase my focus, clarity, and productivity, which is super important since starting my role and job as a doctor very recently. So if you guys want to check out Magic Mind and see how you can also achieve similar results, then click the link down below in the description or use the code on the screen to get you guys 20% off your order from Magic Mind. So to answer the question that a lot of people have been asking me, you know, what is it like to actually start being a doctor for the first time when you've been waiting such a long time? A bit anticlimactic, but honestly, it feels like nothing. It feels like going from your 4th year into your 5th year, or from your 3rd year into your 4th year. And if you're a medical student, you probably know what I'm talking about, where, you know, over the last 5 years, you've spent the entire time, you know, every 3 months, every 4 months, every 2 months actually at King's, moving to a new hospital and going through the entire process of induction all over again. So, you know, meeting the people who you're going to be working with at the hospital, meeting your colleagues, doing all the kind of, you know, health and safety, fire safety, you know, things, and also a bit more like extra training as well. That's kind of what today feels like, or at least half of today feels like. I don't actually start on the wards, you know, with all the responsibility as an F1 until next week. We actually have an entire 1 week of induction training at my hospital. So basically the next entire week, including today, will be shadowing F1. So this afternoon I'll actually be shadowing the F1 whose job that I'll be taking next week, Wednesday. In the morning today, the plan is to actually, I think we have like a prescribing assessment. So we'll go through a bit more, you know, kind of teaching on prescribing. Obviously, it's been a couple of months since we passed our prescribing safety assessment. It is a little bit weird that we have to do this sort of prescribing thing all over again, even after we passed the national prescribing exam. A little bit weird, but I guess that's just kind of like what you have to do in a hospital. So that's the first part of the morning. I think there's a bit more training after that as well. And then after lunch at around 2 p.m, I'll then be starting on the wards, shadowing the doctor and helping like her out basically with the jobs that she has. So when I start next week on Wednesday, I'm not starting, you know, completely, you know, brand new. I'm not starting with no knowledge. I'll actually, you know, have a couple of days already on how the ward works and everything to do with the ward. Take a second here actually because the road is a bit mad. Yeah, going back to the topic of what does it actually feel like to be a doctor finally, I'll give you guys another analogy. Like obviously it's a very different scenario, but still like, hopefully it still makes sense to you. A lot of people ask millionaires when they finally sell their company, right? So they've built their company like a baby for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and they finally get the opportunity to sell their company and they end up selling it for like $100 million or whatever it is. And a lot of people ask them, you know, what does it actually feel like to finally reach that end stage where you finally sell your company and you get the money in your bank account? That's kind of like how I feel now, because a lot of the millionaires say that, yeah, it doesn't feel like anything. You know, I've worked on it for such a long time. This is my daily grind now. You know, it just kind of feels like moving on to the next phase of my life. And I know that sounds a bit anticlimactic, but I know that this is only like a temporary feeling, because I know that for the next week, it's not actually me doing the job. I'm shadowing, I'm doing, you know, bits of training here and there. I know that it's not necessarily my responsibility. When I think the actual excitement will come and where I think I'll be over the moon will be when I'm actually seeing patients myself, when the patients are actually my full responsibility, which will be next week. When I have my first cardiac arrest and I go to the cardiac arrest patient and actually start CPR on a patient to hopefully help save their life. When I prescribe my first drug, which might be today actually, but when I actually prescribe my first drug, I think it'll be in moments like that where it'll finally hit me and I finally realized that I'm the doctor in charge of these patients, obviously with the consultant and the rest of the team. I will be the doctor who's looking after these patients and who will have responsibility to look after these patients. That is the point at which I think it'll finally hit me, and I'll be like, wow, I actually made it, and I'm finally here working as a doctor. So that's kind of what I'm feeling today. I definitely love these car journeys. I will actually probably record another kind of reflection session later on this evening when I'm driving back home from work. Lucky me, my commute is only about 20 minutes or so in my car, so not that bad at all. I actually woke up a little bit early today. I'll probably be at the hospital at 8:30, which gives me half an hour of time to have a quick breakfast. You guys know that I'm frugal, I don't like spending money, but I thought that since it's one of my first days, I'm gonna splash out. I'm gonna get a nice big brekkie when I arrive. Yeah, that is the plan so far this morning. Don't get me wrong, I am super excited still to pick up my new badge ID, which will finally say FY1 doctor. I'm looking forward to picking up my scrubs. I'm looking forward to getting to know my colleagues a bit better. Don't get me wrong, there's still aspects that I'm really excited for. I just wanted to kind of share my temporary fleeting thoughts with you guys right now as I drive to the hospital one of the first times. You guys are really in for a nice video, hopefully. So sit back, relax, enjoy the video, and I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. So I'll see you on the next clip. All right, guys, so back in the apartment now. I was actually gonna record a bit of a chat like I did in the last clip for you guys, but yeah, driving back was really, really tiring and really, really stressful. So I thought I'd actually just sit down and have a nice chat with you guys with a cup of tea here back in my living room. So overall, it actually was a fantastic day. I know in the morning I was a bit apprehensive of what to kind of expect, but as soon as I entered the emergency department rather, things got so exciting. So the morning wasn't as exciting as I mentioned it probably will be. We literally just sat in a room. We had some teaching on prescribing. So prescribing seems to be like a really, really big thing in this hospital, and of course it should be. So we had a session on prescribing, and then after that we actually had a prescribing assessment where we actually were sat like in a lecture hall and with a full exam on prescribing. So that was a bit weird, not as fun. But then I had lunch with my colleagues, so got to sit down and chat to them a bit more and get to know them a bit better, which was so much fun. And then after that, I actually went to meet my F2 buddy in the pediatric assessment unit, which is essentially the kind of pediatric emergency department for all the kids. So I met my buddy, and this is essentially someone who I'm attached to for the next couple of days, and her responsibility is basically to show me the ropes of what it's actually like to do the job of being a doctor or a pediatric doctor. As soon as I walked in, I was kind of expecting, or at least I was told by the hospital admin, that pediatrics is very chilled, it's very supernumerary, and that's kind of what I was expecting. But as soon as I walked in, I met the registrar and the consultant, who are my seniors in the field. And as soon as I walked in, the registrar was like, Kenji, there's a patient that needs to be seen. Are you okay to go and take a history from the patient, examine the patient, and then come and let me know what you think the diagnosis is? And as soon as she said that, I was so shook. I was like, in my mindset, I wasn't coming here to do what she was saying. I thought I was just, coming to learn the ropes and learn how the system works. But of course I had to agree. So I went to see my first ever patient as a doctor, which was amazing. I took a full history, and this is essentially after the A&E doctor took a full history. He was a consultant. He took a full history and he handed it over to the pediatric team. So at this stage, I already kind of knew what the diagnosis was because the A&E doctor gave us the x-rays and all the blood results and all the information. But of course, as the pediatric team, we still had to go and clerk the patient, or essentially, take the history and examine the patient. So after taking history from the mother, because it was a baby that I was looking at, I also examined the baby, and what I found was a few very subtle clinical signs on the baby that actually made me suspect that there was a different diagnosis that was at play here. So essentially what I found, or at least the main feature that I found on the baby, was these very subtle kind of rashes on their hands, in their feet, and also on their mouth as well. If you're a medical student right now, hopefully it's ringing bells in your head, but essentially when you see that on a child, a lot of the times it actually ends up being a diagnosis called hand, foot, and mouth disease. Now, I actually was quite excited that I picked up these kind of clinical signs for the first time ever in reality, and I went over to my pediatric registrar, and of course I was like super nervous, being the first patient I've ever seen as a doctor, and also because the preliminary diagnosis by the A&E doctor was pneumonia. Although I thought it was pneumonia as well, I presented the whole entire case to my registrar, And I said that I actually think there's an additional diagnosis here, which is hand, foot, and mouth disease. And to my amazement, the registrar was like, yes, Kenji, that actually sounds like what it actually is. And the registrar came along with me. She looked at the patient in the exact areas I mentioned, and she agreed with my second diagnosis, which was such a good feeling. And this is kind of the weird transition between being a medical student and being a doctor. What I learned today is that when you're a doctor, firstly, the registrars and the consultants have a bit more confidence in what you're saying, I guess. When I was a medical student, if I took a history and I examined a patient, the doctors would almost come and do the entire thing all over again, or at least maybe 60-70% of it. Whereas when you're a doctor and you hand over the case to your registrar and you give a provisional diagnosis, they normally go in maybe asking 1 or 2 questions to confirm your diagnosis, or maybe 1 or 2 things that I missed out. And they immediately go and look at the signs, the clinical signs on the patient that you mentioned. So as soon as I walked in, the registrar looked exactly at the hands, the feet, and the mouth, asked 1 or 2 questions, and walked out and was like, Kenji, yep, I agree with your diagnosis, I agree with your examination. Now it's your responsibility to go and record all of this information into the patient's notes. And of course, I had to put in my GMC number and sign that off, which is very weird again, because I wouldn't get to do that in medical school, at least the aspect of signing things off. As well as that, she also said, go back to the patient and deliver the diagnosis and talk to them about what it is, and also the management plan. She obviously came up with the management plan, my registrar. After that, she also said it's your responsibility now to prescribe the medication for this given diagnosis. So for this baby, because she had a pneumonia, we decided, or at least the registrar decided, to prescribe colmoxiclav. And then it was my responsibility to actually go for the first time ever to take a prescribing form and write, the actual prescription for the patient, sign it off as me being the doctor who's prescribing medication, and then hand the prescription form to the patient, and then allow them to leave. It was a really, really big learning curve, I'm not gonna lie to you. Huge learning curve. It was scary at times, of course, because this is my first time ever prescribing medication, my first time ever, seeing patients as the doctor. So yeah, it was very, very nerve-wracking, but also so fulfilling. Through the entire afternoon, I probably saw around 3 patients, maybe 4 patients completely by myself, obviously with the input of the registrar or the consultant later on. But, seeing the entire case myself, prescribing the medication myself, writing the notes myself, and then obviously delivering the diagnosis myself, which was so amazing. And I can't describe to you guys how weird, but also how much of a privilege it is, and how amazing it finally feels to be there and actually doing the job that I've trained for the last 5 years. And also, obviously not gonna lie, earning that money, earning that bread for the first time. Halfway through the kind of shift, I looked at my watch and I was like, so I've been here for the last 5 hours, how much have I actually earned? Not that the money actually matters when you're a doctor, even though it kind of does, low key. But the fact that I used to do this for free, right? Throughout medical school, throughout the 5 years, you do that completely for free to learn, but actually being paid to be there is a bit of a weird sort of feeling. Now, I don't want to make this video too long. I don't want to make it, too rambly. This is just a bit of a taste into what it's like to transition to being a doctor for the first time. And I really wanted an environment to share my thoughts and feelings with you guys. But what I'll do is I'll have a full half an hour, maybe 40-minute Q&A session very, very soon to answer all the questions that you guys might have about life as a doctor, and also to go into a bit more detail about this whole entire experience. I got to, sit through lectures that are actually really helpful to me as a doctor. I got to see my own patients today and, do all those amazing things I told you guys about. But I'm gonna stop here before this video gets too long. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for the continued support that you guys have always given me on the channel. A lot of really, really interesting videos coming, guys. The next one might be a full day in the life vlog of my first day officially taking over the role as a junior doctor next Wednesday, but we'll see what is coming. So make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, guys, of any questions you might have for that Q&A coming up. Before you leave, here are a bunch of videos, vlogs on my channel that I think you guys will really, really like. Take care, and I'll see you guys on the next one.